The first hit came before she could speak. Sergeant Jax Harlan slammed his flashlight through the driver's window, glass exploding across Colonel Maya Ellison's face. "Out of the car now!" he shouted, gun drawn. As the Texas sun turned the metal door handle too hot to touch, she raised her hands, calm but trembling. "I haven't done anything." "Officer!" He didn't listen. He yanked the door open, grabbed her by the arm, and slammed a cuff around her wrist, locking it to the steering wheel. "Step out!" he barked again, even though she couldn't move. Her voice was low, steady. "I'm a U.S. Army officer," Harlan sneered. "Not today, you're not." Then he leaned in, his breath thick with arrogance. "You think driving this fancy truck makes you untouchable?" He struck the side mirror with his baton, shattering it. "Get your ID!" Maya kept her composure, blood trickling from her knuckles as she reached slowly into her jacket. "It's in my wallet. Left pocket." Harlan snatched it and read the name out loud. "Colonel Maya Ellison, 82nd Airborne." He laughed. Nice fake. "Before diving into this story, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and give me a like, because what happens next will leave you speechless." Harlan tossed her military ID onto the hood like trash. "You military types think you can do whatever you want," he radioed in, his tone mocking. "Dispatch. I've got a female suspect. Claims to be a colonel. Looks more like a con artist." Maya stayed silent, her pulse slow, her breathing trained. He circled the Bronco, peering through the tinted glass. "Step out before I drag you," she replied calmly. "You don't have probable cause." He slammed his palm against the hood. "I am the cause." Then he drew his baton again and smashed the passenger window. The sound echoed across the empty highway. Maya's Apple Watch recorded everything, every insult, every strike. She didn't flinch, even when the broken glass cut her cheek. She'd faced worse under mortar fire. "Turn off the engine," Harlan shouted. "It's already off," she said. "Don't get smart." He yanked open the back door, rummaging through her belongings, tearing open a duffel bag. He found a small orange bottle, read the label, and smirked. "PTSD meds. So that's what this is. You're one of those head cases." He crushed the bottle under his boot. "You take your pills. Colonel?" She turned to face him, eyes cold. "I take them so I don't do to men like you what I was trained to do." He froze, just for a heartbeat, before slamming the door again. Her voice trembled slightly when she spoke next. "Call my commanding officer. I'll call whoever I damn well please." Harlan snapped. He keyed his radio again. "Possible stolen valor case. Send backup." The dispatch crackled back. "You sure?" "Jax? I said send backup." He looked back at Maya. "You sit tight," she whispered. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." 15 minutes later, a second cruiser pulled up. Deputy Riley Voss, fresh out of the academy. He looked confused, seeing a woman cuffed inside a high-end SUV, bleeding from glass cuts. "What's going on?" "Sarge?" "Routine stop." Harlan lied. She got mouthy. "That blood doesn't look routine. Mind your business." "Rookie." Riley clicked on his body cam. "Protocol says we record. Turn it off," Harlan barked. Riley hesitated but obeyed, not realizing his vest pocket camera was still running silently. Harlan yanked Maya out of the car and forced her to the ground, knee pressing into her spine. "Stop resisting," he shouted, though she wasn't moving. "You're hurting me," she said softly. "That's the point." She winced but didn't fight back. "You're making a federal mistake." "Sergeant," she said, her voice calm, almost too calm. He leaned down, face close to hers. "Lady, I am the law in this town." When Captain Lena Brooks arrived minutes later, she froze at the sight. Harlan standing over a woman in military fatigues, blood streaking down her arm. "Jax, what the hell are you doing?" He turned, startled but defiant, following procedure. That's a Purple Heart in her front seat. He scoffed. Could be stolen. Lena crouched beside Maya, unlocking the cuffs. Colonel Ellison, I'm Captain Brooks. Are you hurt? Maya looked at her and said quietly, Just my dignity. The silence that followed was heavy. Riley's eyes darted between them, sweat dripping down his neck. Harlan's hand twitched near his holster. Lena stood tall, anger rising. Jax, step away. She's lying, he hissed. You don't know what she is, Lena snapped. I know what you are right now. A disgrace. Harlan's jaw clenched. You'll regret that. No, she said. You will. Maya's phone. Lying cracked on the ground, suddenly buzzed. Harlan bent to pick it up, and a voice came through the speaker. Dr. Elijah Grant. Maya, can you hear me? The Pentagon's been notified. Stay calm. Harlan dropped the phone as if it burned him. Lena stared. You really screwed up. Jax. She's bluffing. He growled. But deep down, he knew she wasn't. Maya sat up slowly, pain in every breath, but her gaze steady. This isn't over. Sergeant, she said. He laughed hollowly, turning toward his cruiser. It's over when I say it's over. Then he drove away, tires kicking dust over her boots. Lena knelt beside Maya again. We'll make this right. Maya looked down the long stretch of highway, blood drying under the sun. No. Captain, she said softly. We'll make it known. The next morning, the Texas heat returned like punishment. Colonel Maya Ellison sat in the waiting area of Lockhart Police Headquarters, wrists still bruised, her hand bandaged where the glass had sliced deep. She had come for her vehicle, but the desk sergeant, a gray-haired man pretending not to know who she was, said it was still under investigation. Inside. Sergeant Jax Harlan was pacing the evidence bay, ripping through her Bronco as if he could find proof that she wasn't who she claimed to be. He kicked open the trunk, scattering her gear, combat boots, a duffel of uniforms, and a sealed envelope stamped classified. You see this? He muttered to himself. Real officers don't hide things. He tore it open, ignoring the bold red warning, Federal orders, authorized personnel only. Inside were deployment orders for the Middle East. Her next rotation. Shipping out. Huh? He sneered, filming it on his phone like a trophy. Guess the fake colonel's taking her scam overseas. He laughed under his breath, but his smile cracked when he found the folded American flag and the memorial booklet from Fort Cavazos. 12 names. 12 soldiers dead. For the first time. Something flickered in his eyes. Uncertainty. Maybe shame. But it passed as quickly as it came. Outside. Maya stood beside Captain Lena Brooks. The two women hadn't spoken much since the day before, but Lena's voice now carried quiet anger. He's been in there half an hour. She said, he has no warrant, no cause, and no soul. Maya managed a faint smile. You sound like a soldier. I used to be one, Lena replied, staring through the glass doors, before I started protecting people like him inside. Harlan grabbed a pry bar and smashed open a locked side compartment of the Bronco, pulling out her service pistol, still sealed in its armory case. Well, he muttered. Illegal transport of a firearm. Riley Voss, the rookie, stood by the doorway, pale. That's a military-issued weapon, he said softly. It's registered under her command. Harlan turned. You questioning me again, rookie? Just saying it's legal. Riley stammered. She had authorization. Harlan shoved the weapon into a plastic bag. Not anymore. When Maya was finally called in, she stood tall despite the pain, her uniform now crisp, the medals visible. Harlan glanced up from the table, pretending to read her file. Colonel, he said mockingly, we found some interesting things in your vehicle. You mean the evidence you illegally obtained? She replied. His smirk faded. You people love that word, don't you? Illegal. Like it means something. It does, she said. It's what separates law from abuse. He leaned back, folding his arms. You think your rank gives you special treatment? No, she said. I think my citizenship does. The room went quiet. Riley stood outside, pretending to file paperwork, but his phone recorded the entire exchange. Harlan's voice grew louder. You want to talk law? Colonel, you resisted arrest. You refused orders. You made a scene. Maya's expression didn't change. You broke the window before I spoke a word. For officer safety. He snapped. I couldn't see your hands. You never asked to. Lena entered then, arms crossed. Sergeant, step outside. Harlan glared. We're not done here. You are now, she said sharply. He slammed his folder shut, muttering under his breath. She's got everyone fooled. As soon as he left, Lena leaned on the table, lowering her voice. You need to file a report with the feds. He's protected here. Chief Reed covered worse. Maya looked her in the eye. How bad? Lena hesitated. Let's just say you're not his first. Outside. Harlan's voice echoed through the hallway, laughing with another officer. Can you believe she pulled rank on me? A colonel. Next thing you know, they'll make her chief. The others laughed nervously, the kind of laughter people use to survive fear. Maya stood and straightened her jacket. I'm done talking. I want my vehicle back. Lena sighed. It's impounded for now. Then I'll call the Pentagon, Maya said, walking toward the door. Harlan stepped in her path. You're not leaving till I say so. She met his stare, her voice like steel. Then say it fast. You're under investigation. He said, for what? For making me look like a fool. She stepped closer, her calm frightening. You didn't need my help for that. Sergeant! The tension broke when Riley approached, holding a folder. Captain, Internal Affairs requested the footage from the stop. Harlan froze. What footage? Riley said quietly. Mine. Harlan's jaw tightened. You turned it in? Yes, sir. You just signed your career away. Rookie. Lena took the folder and handed it to Maya. Keep this safe. What's on it? Maya asked. The truth, Lena said. Hours later, at sunset, Chief Marcus Reed arrived. His tie loosened, eyes hard. What the hell's going on here? Harlan gestured wildly. She's playing us. She's no colonel. Reed looked at Maya's ID, the military insignia, the direct number to Fort Cavazos command. His face went pale. Get out, he ordered Harlan. Chief, she. I said get out. Harlan slammed the door behind him. Rage boiling, Reed turned to Maya. Colonel Ellison, this is all a misunderstanding. It was assault, she corrected. And false imprisonment. You'll have your car tomorrow, Reed said, his voice now pleading. We'll clean this up quietly. She stepped closer. You won't clean it. You'll answer for it. Harlan waited in the hallway, pacing, fists clenched. She's lying. He muttered, They always are. Riley approached, hesitant. You should go home. Sir, you think she's some hero? Harlan snapped. You think this is over? I think it should be, Riley said softly. Before it ruins you. Rookie, Harlan said with a bitter laugh. I don't ruin easy. As Maya exited the station, the night air hit her face like release. She walked to the curb, looked up at the faint stars, and whispered to herself, Breathe. Soldier. Lena caught up with her. He's dangerous. She said, I know. Maya replied. He's also desperate. Lena frowned. What are you going to do? Maya looked at the flashing lights of the highway beyond. Wait, she said quietly. People like him always come back to finish what they started, inside. Harlan stood by the evidence bay, staring at his cracked phone screen replaying the video he'd taken of her orders. Every frame reminded him how small he'd looked beside her, how calm she'd stayed. That calm burned worse than any insult. "She thinks she's better than me," he muttered. "She'll see." He opened a drawer, pulled out a small black GPS tracker, and smiled faintly. "You want to play soldier? Colonel, let's go to war." By midnight, Maya was home in her Austin apartment, sitting by the window, her ribs aching, phone in her hand. Dr. Grant's voice on the other end was firm but kind. "You did everything right? It doesn't feel like it," she said. "It never does," he replied. "But you're not done yet." She stared at the moonlight cutting across her desk, where the Purple Heart lay beside a photo of her fallen team. "He's not done either," she whispered. "I can feel it." And miles away, under the sodium lights of a lonely parking lot, Harlan watched her Bronco through binoculars, engine running, teeth clenched, a twisted grin on his face. The war he wanted had just begun. Lockhart Police Headquarters reeked of coffee, sweat, and fear. The walls were yellowed with age, lined with awards that hadn't been earned honestly. Colonel Maya Ellison sat inside Interrogation Room B, hands resting on the table, wrists still red from the cuffs, a small streak of dried blood tracing her thumb. She hadn't spoken since being brought in. Across the mirrored glass, Chief Marcus Reed watched from the shadows, his expression unreadable. Sergeant Jax Harlan stood beside him, pacing, furious that she hadn't broken. "She's stonewalling," he said. "I want her processed." Reed didn't look up. "No report, no body cam, no arrest. You touch that file and it comes back to me. Then what? Chief, we just let her go?" "That's exactly what we do," Reed said. "And we scrub everything." Harlan slammed his palm against the wall. "She's lying. I know it. You don't know a damn thing," Reed snapped. "What I know is the Pentagon just called. You picked the wrong woman." Harlan's face went pale. Inside the room, Maya's patience thinned. She'd been sitting for 4 hours, denied water, her phone confiscated, her attorney request ignored. Every sound outside the door, boots, whispers, laughter, felt like an insult. She finally leaned forward, her voice calm but firm. "Am I being charged?" The officer watching her didn't answer. "Then I'm leaving," she said. She stood, but 2 guards entered, blocking the exit. "Sit down," one said. "Until when?" she asked. "Until we say." She exhaled slowly, steadying herself. Then, with her bandaged hand, she wrote on the wall in her own blood, "I am Colonel Maya Ellison, 82nd Airborne. Do your job." In the hallway, Captain Lena Brooks arrived, eyes red from sleeplessness. She cornered Harlan near the locker room. "What the hell are you doing?" "My job," he growled. "You crossed the line." "She made me look weak," he snapped. "You did that to yourself." His hand shook as he lit a cigarette. "She's not who she says she is. She can't be. They're covering for her." "You're spiraling," Lena said quietly. "Walk away before this destroys you." "You used to have my back," he said bitterly. "Not for this." "I took a bullet for you," he shouted. "And now you're choosing her?" She didn't flinch. "I'm choosing what's right." Chief Reed called them both into his office. The blinds were closed, and a bottle of bourbon sat half empty on the desk. "We're shutting this down," he said. "No paperwork, no press. We delete the footage, impound the car, and forget it happened." "You can't bury this," Lena said. "Watch me," Reed replied. Harlan stood there trembling, his voice cracking. "She's lying. Chief, she's manipulating us." "That's what they do." Reed's patience snapped. "That woman outranks every one of us by 20 years. The Pentagon confirmed it. He leaned forward, voice low and venomous. "Do you know what happens when the army comes for one of their own?" Silence. "They don't sue you," he said. "They erase you." Maya could hear the muffled argument through the walls. The words Pentagon and erase hit her ears, and she smiled faintly. "They're scared now." She closed her eyes and pictured her squad back in Kandahar, their calm under fire, the way they trusted her even when everything fell apart. "Stay centered." Dr. Grant's voice echoed in her memory. "You don't win wars by shouting. You win them by surviving the first shot." Minutes later, the door opened, and Reed stepped inside. His tone was suddenly polite. "Colonel Ellison, this has been a misunderstanding. She didn't move. You're free to go." "After 4 hours?" she asked. "That's how long it takes to confirm a lie. And now you're convinced it's not?" she said. He forced a smile. "We're all on the same side." "I doubt that." As Maya gathered her belongings, she looked at Harlan through the window. His eyes were wild. He whispered something to himself, something she couldn't hear, but she knew the look. It was the look of a man who'd lost control and would do anything to get it back. Reed handed her a form to sign, refusal to comply acknowledgement. She read it once and slid it back across the table. "You'll need a lawyer's signature for that," she said. Reed's jaw tightened. "Don't make this harder than it has to be." "I'm not," she replied. "You already did." Dr. Grant called her phone at that exact moment, his voice cutting through the tension. "Colonel, I'm on with the Deputy Chief of Staff. They're dispatching military police if you're not released in 10 minutes. Reed's face drained of color. He grabbed the phone. "This is Chief Marcus Reed, Lockhart PD. We have it handled." Grant's tone was pure ice. "No, Chief, you had your chance." Then the line went dead. Reed stared at Maya. "You called the Pentagon?" She met his gaze evenly. "No, Dr. Grant did." "You're out of your mind." "No," she said. "I'm done being silent." Outside, the entire precinct buzzed with unease. Officers whispered about the woman in the interrogation room, the colonel who made the chief sweat. Lena stood by the vending machine, rubbing her temples. "It's over," she murmured, but she was wrong. Harlan was standing by the evidence lockers, his hands gripping the metal edge so tightly his knuckles turned white. He'd just been suspended for 30 days without pay. For optics, Reed had said. Harlan slammed the locker shut, his voice cracking with rage. "She ruined me," he hissed. "She doesn't get to walk away." He punched the metal so hard his knuckles split. "I'll prove it," he whispered. Maya walked out of the precinct at 6 p.m. The sky was turning gold over the rooftops, and the heat had finally begun to fade. Her Bronco was gone, impounded for evidence. Lena caught up with her at the steps. "He's not done," she said quietly. "I know. He's unstable. You need protection." "I've handled worse," Maya said softly. "You don't understand. He feels humiliated." Maya turned to her, eyes calm but cold. "That's not my problem. That's his disease. Back inside." Reed watched her through the blinds as she walked away. "You should have kept your head down." "Jax," he said under his breath, "now you've dragged us all into hell." But Harlan wasn't listening anymore. He sat alone in the locker room, staring at his reflection in the cracked mirror. His lips moved silently, repeating her name over and over like a curse. Maya Ellison, Colonel Ellison. Then, slowly, he smiled, a thin, broken smile. "You think you won," he whispered to the empty room. "You just started the next battle." That night, Maya reached her apartment near downtown Austin, shoulders heavy, heart still racing from the hours of interrogation. She poured a glass of water, hands trembling just enough to spill a few drops onto the counter. Her phone buzzed again. "Dr. Grant, you're safe now," he said. "No, Elijah," she replied quietly. "I'm visible now, and that's when men like him become dangerous. Far away, in the dark of the evidence bay." Harlan opened his locker and pulled out a black duffel bag. Inside were spare cuffs, a service pistol, and a small GPS tracker glowing faintly green. He looked toward the night through the narrow window and whispered, "Tomorrow." Then he turned off the light. The next afternoon, the heat hit Texas like vengeance. At 3:17 p.m., Colonel Maya Ellison's black Bronco rolled down FM 1327, the road stretching like a blade between parched fields. She'd just left Dr. Grant's office after another evaluation, her ribs still sore, her sleep still fractured, but her voice was calm, measured, as she left a voicemail for Captain Lena Brooks. "I'm heading back to Fort Cavazos tonight. Tell Riley, thank you." Behind her, half a mile back, a black Dodge Charger idled in traffic. Inside, Sergeant Jax Harlan's knuckles drummed the steering wheel. His eyes were hidden behind cheap sunglasses, his lips dry from adrenaline. He'd been tailing her since sunrise, tracking the GPS beacon he'd planted beneath her Bronco the night before. Every ping on his screen fed the same thought through his skull. She humiliated me. She took my badge. She's not walking away clean. He accelerated. The Charger roared, closing the distance fast. Maya glanced in the mirror, instantly sensing pursuit, the same pattern of movement, the same shadow keeping pace. She turned onto a deserted stretch, hoping he'd pass. Instead, he gunned it. The first impact came hard, metal crunching metal, her body snapping forward into the seatbelt. The Bronco fishtailed, gravel spraying. "Not again," she whispered, gripping the wheel. Then came the second hit, dead center. The SUV jolted, tires screeching, her heart raced, her mind narrowing to training. "3 impacts," she muttered, "and he'll try to box me in." She was right. The third strike slammed the rear corner, spinning her sideways off the shoulder. The Bronco rolled twice before landing upside down in the dust. Windshield shattered, airbags deflated. For a moment, silence. Then the unmistakable sound of boots crunching on gravel. Harlan emerged, his pistol drawn, his face a storm of sweat and hate. He fired 2 warning shots into the air, his voice ragged. "You humiliated me, Colonel!" Maya coughed, tasting blood, ribs screaming with every breath. She unbuckled and dropped to the sand, one knee giving out. "You need to walk away," she rasped. "This isn't the way. You ruined my life," he shouted. "They took my badge, my pension, everything." She tried to stand, but her leg buckled. "You did that yourself." "Say it," he screamed. "Say you're not a colonel. I outrank you in every way that matters." The words hit him like a slap. He charged, pistol whipping her across the face. She stumbled back, blood streaming from her cheek. "You're gonna learn respect," he growled, a mile away, in an unmarked cruiser. Deputy Riley Voss watched in horror through binoculars. He'd followed Harlan from Lockhart, knowing something wasn't right. His dash cam recorded everything, live streaming directly to Captain Brooks's private feed. "Lena," he whispered into his mic. "He's attacking her. She's down." Lena's voice came through sharp. "Stay out of sight. Riley, I've called Fort Cavazos. Black Hawk inbound in 12 minutes. He's got a gun on her. I said wait, back in the desert." Maya's vision blurred. The sun stabbed her eyes, her mouth full of sand. Harlan circled her like a predator. "Look at you," he hissed. "All that rank, all those medals, and here you are bleeding in the dirt. You're nothing." She raised her head, blood dripping from her chin. "Then why are you afraid of me?" His breath hitched. "Because I remind you what you'll never be." She finished. His scream broke the air. He kicked her ribs, and something cracked. She gasped, but didn't beg. "You think this makes you a man?" She choked. "You're just a uniform with no soul." "Shut up," he shouted, slamming his boot into her shoulder. She reached down, clutching a handful of dirt mixed with glass. Waiting. The desert wind howled across the highway as he pulled a combat knife from his belt. This time, no cameras. He snarled. "No witnesses, just me and you." But as he spoke, a faint rumble grew overhead, the unmistakable thunder of rotor blades. He froze, looking up. A Black Hawk helicopter sliced across the horizon, its searchlights sweeping the landscape. "No, no, no!" he shouted, spinning around. Maya took her chance. She swung the dirt and glass into his eyes. He screamed, stumbling back, blinded. She lunged, slamming her shoulder into his midsection. They fell hard into the sand, rolling, blood and grit mixing under the blinding sun. He clawed at her throat, but she twisted, training taking over. She jammed her thumb into his wrist, forcing the gun loose. It fired once, the bullet whistling past her ear. Riley moved closer now, crouched behind a mesquite bush. Camera still rolling. "Captain," he whispered. "The chopper's 2 minutes out. She's fighting him. She's hurt bad." Lena's voice trembled. "Hold your position. We'll have backup on ground in 60 seconds. He's gonna kill her," Riley said, his voice breaking. "Not if she gets to him first," Lena replied. Harlan staggered back, spitting blood, sand sticking to his face. "You don't know when to quit," he shouted. "Neither did the Taliban," Maya said hoarsely. "You think you scare me? You should!" He snarled, lunging again. She dodged, caught his arm, twisted it behind his back. The sound of bone cracking echoed across the empty desert. He screamed, dropping to his knees, clutching his arm as it hung limp. You broke yourself," she hissed. The helicopter's downdraft hit them like a storm, kicking up dust. Soldiers shouted through megaphones, but neither of them moved. "You're under arrest," a voice blared. "Drop the weapon." Harlan ignored it. He drew his knife with his good hand, slashing wildly. Maya blocked the first strike, but the blade sliced her forearm open. Pain shot up her arm, white hot, but she didn't stop. She grabbed his wrist, twisted again, and the knife dropped into the sand. "It's over. Jax," she said, her voice breaking. "You lost." He tried to rise, blood dripping from his nose, sweat pouring from his temples. "I'll tell them you attacked me," he gasped. "I'll tell them you snapped." She looked down at him, eyes dark and steady. "They already know who the monster is." The helicopter touched down nearby, soldiers rushing forward with weapons drawn. Harlan looked up at them, face twisted in panic. "Don't shoot! She's crazy!" But no one moved toward her. They surrounded him. Maya collapsed to one knee, clutching her side as blood seeped through her sleeve. "Colonel Ellison!" a voice shouted. "Doctor!" Elijah Grant jumped from the helicopter, sprinting toward her with a med kit. "Stay with me." "Maya," she managed a faint smile. "Told you." He'd come back. Grant injected morphine into her arm, pressing gauze against the wound. Harlan tried to crawl away, dragging himself across the sand. Riley emerged from the brush, gun raised, voice shaking. "Don't move! Sergeant!" Harlan turned, blinking through blood. "You!" he spat. "You were recording this? The whole time," Riley said. "You're finished." Harlan lunged, but 2 soldiers tackled him, slamming him into the dirt. Handcuffs clicked around his wrists. He screamed as they hauled him up. "You set me up! You all set me up!" No one answered. As the helicopter lifted off, Maya lay strapped to a stretcher, the desert below painted red by the sunset. Her body was broken, but her eyes stayed open, fixed on the man below. Harlan thrashing against the soldiers, still screaming her name. Dr. Grant leaned close. "It's over," he said softly. Maya exhaled, her voice barely a whisper. "No, Elijah, this is where it begins." The Black Hawk banked north toward Fort Cavazos, leaving the storm of dust and sirens behind. As the Texas desert swallowed the sound of Harlan's rage forever, the desert was still trembling from rotor wash when the medics rushed Colonel Maya Ellison into the Black Hawk. Blood streaked her sleeve, ribs grinding with every breath, but her eyes stayed open, below. Sergeant Jax Harlan screamed curses into the wind, wrists bound, sand crusting his lips. As the helicopter rose, the last thing Maya saw was him kicking, thrashing like a man drowning in his own hate. Then the desert fell away, replaced by endless sky. Dr. Elijah Grant leaned over her, pressing morphine into her vein. "You're stable," he said. "You're safe now." She turned her head weakly, meeting his gaze. "He's not finished," she whispered. "He's finished," Grant replied firmly. "Riley got it all. Video, audio, everything. It's over." But Maya knew better. Men like Harlan didn't quit when they were beaten. They quit when they were caged, at Fort Cavazos. Emergency lights painted the runway red and blue. Soldiers lined the path as the Black Hawk landed. Medics lifted Maya onto a stretcher, her uniform soaked through with blood. Her mind drifted in and out of consciousness, snatches of sound, memory, and pain. She saw faces from Kandahar, heard the ringing echo of mortars, smelled the dry metallic scent of burning sand. "You're home," someone said, but home didn't feel like safety anymore. It felt like survival, one more time. Meanwhile, in the back of a military transport truck, Harlan sat cuffed between two MPs, face bruised and swollen. "You think you've won," he muttered to no one. "You think they'll believe her." His left arm hung limp in a sling. Bone shattered from the fight. The young corporal across from him stared straight ahead, refusing to engage. "She'll pay," Harlan hissed. "You'll see." But the corporal only said, "Sir, you might want to pray instead." 2 hours later, at the Fort Cavazos infirmary, Maya regained full consciousness. Dr. Grant stood at her bedside, reading vitals. 3 cracked ribs, torn forearm, mild concussion. "You're lucky, Colonel." She managed a dry smile. "Luck had nothing to do with it." He sighed. "You almost bled out in that desert. I don't know how you fought him off." "Habit," she said softly. "You learn to fight in the dark long before the light shows up." Grant adjusted her IV. "The Army's already talking to the Justice Department. They want this public." She turned her head, eyes narrowing. "Public?" "Yes. Riley's footage went viral. 50,000 views in 2 hours." She blinked, stunned. "He uploaded it?" "No," Grant said. "Captain Brooks did." At that same moment in Austin, Lena Brooks was sitting in front of a glowing laptop, tears streaking her face. She'd spent the last 12 hours watching the footage over and over, the beating, the blood, the desperate final fight. Riley's recording captured everything, the arrogance, the brutality, the moment Harlan screamed for mercy. She clicked send on an encrypted transfer to the U.S. Attorney's Office. The subject line read simply, "Lockhart PD evidence. Immediate action required." Then she turned off the monitor and sat in silence, the weight of betrayal pressing on her chest. Harlan had been her friend once. She'd trusted him with her life. Now, she'd helped destroy him. By dawn. The story was national. News anchors used words like unbelievable, horrific, and unforgivable. The Department of Justice opened a full-scale civil rights investigation. 47 buried complaints against Lockhart PD resurfaced within days. Cases of false arrests, assault, intimidation, all signed by one name, Sergeant Jax Harlan. Chief Marcus Reed denied everything on camera, sweating under the studio lights. "We're cooperating fully," he said, voice trembling. "This department has zero tolerance for misconduct." Hours later, he was found dead in his office, single gunshot wound, no note. Lena Brooks got the call just before dawn. She didn't cry. She just stared at the wall and said, "One down, 47 to go, at Fort Cavazos." Maya was moved to a private recovery suite. The room was quiet, sterile, filled with the faint hum of machines. Dr. Grant entered with a laptop. "You should see this," he said. On screen was the footage Riley captured, now being played across national networks. The public outrage was immediate. Protests in Austin, vigils in Dallas, military veterans marching in uniform carrying signs that read, "Respect the rank." "Respect the woman." Maya watched silently, her expression unreadable. They're calling you a hero, Grant said. I'm not, she replied. I'm just tired. Then rest, he urged. You've done your part. She turned her head slowly, eyes distant. No, she whispered. Not until the system learns what it did. That afternoon, federal agents arrived to transport Harlan to Austin for arraignment. Reporters swarmed outside the courthouse, cameras flashing as he was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit, left arm in a cast, eyes hollow with exhaustion and rage. Do you regret it? One shouted. Harlan turned toward the crowd and sneered. Regret what? Putting a liar in her place? A reporter fired back. She's a decorated colonel. Yeah? He spat. Then where's her uniform now? The crowd booed, jeers rising inside as he sat in holding. He realized for the first time that the world wasn't laughing with him anymore. It was watching him fall apart. Riley Voss testified first during the preliminary hearing. Nervous, but steady. He described everything he'd seen, how he'd recorded the stop, how he'd followed Harlan against orders, how he'd live-streamed the attack. When asked why he risked his career, he said quietly, because justice isn't optional. Lena Brooks testified next, detailing years of buried misconduct reports and Chief Reed's cover-ups. Finally, Maya entered the courtroom, arm in a sling, dress uniform pressed and gleaming. The room fell silent. Even the judge stood. She raised her right hand, swore in, and took the stand. Her voice carried through the chamber, measured, precise, unflinching. He didn't stop me because I broke the law. She said, he stopped me because I broke his illusion of power. He saw a black woman in command and decided it was a crime. Harlan sat across from her, jaw tight, eyes full of venom. She's lying, he shouted. This is a setup. The judge slammed his gavel. One more outburst, and you'll be removed. Maya didn't flinch. You had every chance to walk away, she said to him. But you couldn't stand the thought of a woman like me walking free while you rotted in your own hate. He leaned forward, voice low. You think you've won? She held his gaze. Winning was never the point. Change is. The jury took only 3 hours to deliberate, guilty on all counts, assault under color of law, attempted murder, conspiracy to obstruct justice, 22 years, no parole, when the sentence was read. Harlan erupted, thrashing as deputies restrained him. You can't do this to me, he screamed. I am the law. Maya rose slowly, turned toward him, and said evenly, No, you were its shadow. The courtroom fell silent. As they dragged him away, he shouted her name over and over, but she didn't look back. Outside, sunlight flooded the courthouse steps. Reporters called her name, microphones extended, questions flying. Colonel Ellison, what's your message to the public? She paused, straightened her jacket, and spoke clearly. Power is not immunity, it's accountability. And when those who wear the badge forget that, the people will remind them. Cameras clicked like applause. She walked down the steps, Lena and Riley at her side, the crowd parting in reverent quiet. That night, Maya returned to Fort Cavazos. The desert outside was calm now, the wind softer, the stars mercifully clear. Dr. Grant found her standing on the balcony overlooking the base. You did it, he said. She shook her head. No, we did. He smiled faintly. What now? She stared into the horizon, where the desert met the night. Now, she said quietly, we make sure no one else has to fight this battle again, and somewhere far away, in a federal holding cell. Jax Harlan sat alone in silence, the sound of her words echoing in his head like the one order he'd never be able to defy. The Austin Federal Courthouse was packed before sunrise. News trucks lined the street, their antennas reaching skyward, while crowds filled the steps chanting Maya Ellison's name. Inside, the air carried the tension of reckoning. Reporters whispered, cameras clicked, and every eye turned when the doors opened and Colonel Ellison entered in her dress uniform. metals glinting beneath the fluorescent light. She walked slowly, each step deliberate, her ribs still healing, her left arm wrapped in a dark sling. Behind her came Captain Lena Brooks and Deputy Riley Voss, both summoned as witnesses, both pale from sleepless nights, across the aisle. Sergeant Jax Harlan sat at the defense table, his face gaunt, one eye swollen from prison fights, his right arm bound in a brace. He looked at her not with anger now, but with something darker, humiliation laced with disbelief. For the first time in his life, he wasn't the one in control. Judge Marion Castillo entered, her gavel striking like a gunshot. Court is now in session. United States versus Jax Harlan. Case number 25-1932. The charges echoed through the chamber. Aggravated assault under color of law, attempted homicide, falsification of evidence, civil rights violations, obstruction of justice. Harlan shifted in his seat, sweat forming at his temple. His attorney, a weary public defender, leaned close. "Don't speak unless I tell you to." But Harlan wasn't listening. His mind was still trapped on that desert highway, replaying the moment her hand locked around his throat. The moment fear took the place of power. The prosecution called Deputy Riley Voss first. His testimony was clear, direct, and devastating. He described the traffic stop, the broken glass, the racial slurs, and the final attack. When the prosecutor asked why he didn't intervene sooner, Riley's voice broke. "I was afraid," he said, but she wasn't. Even bleeding, even cuffed. She looked that man in the eye and told him he was wrong. The jurors stared at him, visibly moved. The defense tried to shake him, accused him of lying for promotion, of editing footage, but Riley stood firm. "I didn't protect her because she's a colonel," he said. "I protected her because she's human." Next came Captain Lena Brooks. She walked to the stand in uniform, back straight, expression resolute. The prosecutor played the hidden clips she'd submitted. The body cam footage showing Harlan smashing Maya's window. The audio of him mocking her medication. The moment he said, "Out here." "I'm the rank." The courtroom gasped. Harlan's attorney objected. The judge overruled. "Play it again." She ordered. When the clip ended, Lena's voice filled the silence. "That wasn't policing," she said. "That was hate in uniform, and I was part of a department that let it grow." Her voice cracked on the last word. We looked the other way too long. Then it was Maya's turn. She took the stand slowly, saluted the court, and swore in. The prosecutor stepped aside. "Colonel Ellison," the judge said softly, "you may speak." Maya looked out across the room, the jurors, the officers, the spectators, and finally, Harlan. Her voice was steady. "On June 12th, I was driving south after a memorial for 12 soldiers who never made it home. Sergeant Harlan stopped me without cause. He broke my window, cuffed me to my steering wheel, called me a fraud, and mocked my injuries. When that didn't satisfy him, he hunted me again the next day, rammed my car, and tried to kill me. I didn't fight him as a soldier. I fought him as a survivor." Her words hung heavy. The prosecutor stepped forward. "Colonel, why didn't you press charges immediately after the first stop?" Maya paused. "Because I wanted to believe it was just one man. But I learned it wasn't. It was a system that protected men like him. It was a silence that fed him." Her eyes locked on Harlan. "You thought my rank made me untouchable. It didn't. My humanity did." The defense finally called Harlan to testify. He limped to the stand, jaw set, hands trembling. His lawyer whispered, "Stick to the facts." But once the questions began, his temper cracked. "She provoked me," he said. She mouthed off, refused orders. She identified herself as a colonel. The prosecutor interrupted. "You saw her ID. Could have been fake." Harlan snapped. "People fake things all the time. Her Purple Heart too? That could have been bought," he shouted. The courtroom murmured. The judge slammed her gavel. "Order!" Harlan kept talking. Faster now, unraveling. You don't get it. People like her think they're better than us. Always looking down. Always. People like her? The prosecutor asked coldly. You mean soldiers? Harlan faltered. I mean... He stopped, realizing too late what he'd said. The jury watched in silence as he tried to rebuild his arrogance. But it was gone. When closing arguments began, the prosecutor turned to the jury. This case isn't about a traffic stop, she said. It's about power. It's about what happens when a badge becomes a weapon instead of a promise. Sergeant Harlan believed his authority made him untouchable. Colonel Ellison proved him wrong. She pointed toward Maya. That woman didn't just survive his hatred, she exposed it. The defense tried one last time to sway the room. Sergeant Harlan is a man who served his community for 15 years, the lawyer said. He made mistakes under stress. The colonel escalated, but no one believed it anymore. The evidence was too clear, the pattern too damning. When the jury returned, the tension was suffocating. 12 faces, 12 lives about to decide his. The foreman stood. We, the jury, find the defendant, Jax Harlan, guilty on all counts. Gasps filled the courtroom. Harlan's face turned ghostly. The judge leaned forward. Sergeant Harlan, you abused your badge, your authority, and your oath. You hunted an innocent woman out of hate. This court sentences you to 22 years in federal prison. With no possibility of parole, Harlan shouted. She set me up. This whole damn thing was a trap. 2 marshals held him down as he struggled. Maya didn't flinch. You did this to yourself, she said quietly. And you know it. The judge turned to Maya. Colonel Ellison, is there anything you wish to add before we adjourn? She stood, shoulders square despite the pain. Only this, Your Honor. When power is unchecked, it becomes violence. When violence is ignored, it becomes law. And when law loses its soul, the people must reclaim it. The judge nodded solemnly, spoken like a true leader, as Harlan was dragged away. His voice echoed down the hall, a broken roar of bitterness. You think you're a hero? You're just another headline. Maya watched him disappear through the doors, then turned to Lena and Riley. Headlines fade, she said softly. Change doesn't. Outside, sunlight poured over the courthouse steps. The crowd erupted, reporters calling her name, veterans saluting as she passed. She stopped before the microphones, her uniform crisp against the wind. Justice isn't revenge, she said. It's repair. And today, something broken finally began to mend. Cameras flashed as she descended the marble stairs. Riley wiped his eyes. Lena took her hand. You did it, Lena whispered. No, Maya replied, looking out at the people gathering behind the barricades. We did. That night. The courthouse lights dimmed. The news feeds replayed the verdict, and across the nation, the video of her standing in uniform beside the flag spread like wildfire. In a federal transport van heading to Beaumont Penitentiary, Harlan sat alone, cuffed and shaking, staring at his reflection in the window for the first time. There was no one left to blame but himself, and for the first time in years. The state of Texas felt a little less afraid of the shadows behind the badge. Beaumont Federal Penitentiary stood silent beneath a gray morning sky, its concrete walls stained with time and regret. Inside, former Sergeant Jax Harlan sat in solitary confinement, one eye blinded from a prison brawl, the other staring blankly at the steel door. The screams from the other cells no longer startled him. He had become part of the noise. Another ghost swallowed by his own violence. For weeks he'd been writing letters, 47 in total, one for every victim whose file he'd buried. I'm sorry, he wrote each time. But the words felt hollow. When the guards finally mailed them, none were answered. One of those letters reached Colonel Maya Ellison's desk at Fort Cavazos, unopened, bearing the mark, federal inmate. She stared at it for a moment, then fed it into the fireplace. The flame curled the edges slowly until his name disappeared in ash. 3 months had passed since the trial. The storm of headlines had faded, replaced by new scandals and newer heroes. But Maya's work had just begun. Her injuries had healed, though the scars ran deeper than the skin. The Pentagon reassigned her to command a 3,000-soldier brigade, the first black woman to hold the post in Texas. Her first act wasn't a parade or a ceremony. It was a briefing titled "The Cost of Silence." In it, she played the footage from Riley's camera to every new recruit, her voice steady. "This is what unchecked power looks like. It doesn't wear a uniform. It hides behind one. Never become it." The room always ended in silence, and that silence was the lesson. Riley Voss, once the nervous rookie who hid his phone in fear, was now Sergeant Voss, leading the department's new integrity unit. He still carried guilt for the hours he'd stayed quiet that first day. But Maya never blamed him. Courage isn't about timing, she told him. It's about what you do when the truth finds you. His unit reopened 47 old cases, leading to 12 terminations and 3 indictments. Each time he signed a report, he thought of the woman bleeding on the highway who taught him what duty really meant. Captain Lena Brooks became the city's first female police chief that summer. She gutted the department, fired officers who'd been untouchable for years, and stood before the press with calm defiance. "Justice isn't a one-time act," she said. "It's a daily practice." The governor gave her the State Leadership Award, but she refused to attend the ceremony. Instead, she visited Maya at the base. The 2 women sat in her office, coffee between them, the sunset turning the blinds gold. "You ever sleep well again?" Lena asked quietly. Maya smiled faintly. "Some nights, others. I still see him. In your dreams?" "In the mirror," Maya said. "Because if I ever forget what men like him can do, I stop being the kind of leader this world needs." By fall, the media had turned her story into documentaries and talk shows, but Maya stayed out of the spotlight. She founded the Shadow on the Badge Fund, a national nonprofit to support victims of police abuse and train officers in crisis intervention, accountability, and trauma response within 6 months. It raised over $2 million. The tagline read, "Power is not a badge, it's a promise." The first chapter opened in Dallas, then Houston, then Atlanta. Dr. Elijah Grant served as the fund's clinical advisor, teaching officers how to recognize PTSD instead of punishing it. The colonel took her pain. He told a class and turned it into protection for others. That's leadership. That's redemption, Harlan. Meanwhile, sank deeper into madness. Inmates called him One-Eyed Jack. He spent his days scratching words into the wall, rank, power, law, until the guards stopped cleaning the cell. When the prison chaplain visited, he asked if Harlan wanted forgiveness. Harlan laughed. "Forgiveness?" "She took everything. What's left to forgive?" The chaplain sighed. "Yourself." But Harlan didn't understand. He never would. On a cool October evening, Maya stood alone on the parade field at Fort Cavazos. The flag rippled against a pink sky, the air heavy with dust and quiet pride. A young cadet approached, saluting nervously. "Ma'am, the men are asking about tomorrow's address. The topic, she smiled. "Tomorrow's not about orders. Son, it's about memory." When he left, she looked up at the horizon, whispering to the wind. "You can bury a man, but not his lesson." Later that night, she recorded a message for the military's new ethics program. Her voice, calm and deliberate, filled the small studio. "Power is borrowed," she said. "Every badge, every uniform, every title. They're on loan from the people we serve. Abuse it, and someone like me will come for you. Maybe in court, maybe in uniform, maybe in silence, but we'll come. because justice doesn't retire. It waits. When she finished, she turned off the light, leaving only the faint glow from her purple heart on the shelf. The desert wind outside carried the scent of rain. She closed her eyes, breathing it in. For the first time in years, she didn't feel anger, only resolve. Somewhere beyond those prison walls, the man who tried to break her was still alive. But he no longer mattered. The system that enabled him was finally being rebuilt. One case, one truth, one act of courage at a time. And as dawn crept over Texas, Colonel Maya Ellison, soldier, survivor, and shadow on the badge, walked out onto the field, saluted the rising flag, and whispered, "Justice isn't what we wait for, it's what we become." Thank you for watching this story. If it moved you, please take a moment to subscribe, give this video a like, and share it with someone who still believes in justice. Your support helps keep these stories alive, stories that remind us power must always answer to truth.